Robert Kennedy said that you never experience true happiness until you begin to give. You got to give. You got to give back. You have to find a cause that you're willing to die for, willing to fight for, and you live for that cause, whatever it may be. Whether it's homelessness, right? My family, we were homeless, or there's breast cancer. My mom, she passed away from breast cancer, Whether it's racial injustice, whether it's hunger, starvation, single-parent households, whatever it is that you want to stand up for, find that cause and stand up for that. I'm sure every last person here, though you may be from different parts of the city, I can ask you a question and everybody here will raise their hand. Want to bet? You from Akron, from Pittsburgh, from Columbus, from Cleveland. Where you from, bro? From Cleveland? What part of Cleveland? All around Cleveland, all right? D, where you from, D'Angelo? Where you from?
Akron.
Akron, Hacktown. Mario, where you from? New York? Oh, you got the Yankees hat. Okay, you from Cleveland. Now watch this. How many of you all have had a family member in jail? Look at that shit. Can't we? If you don't raise your hand, you know that family member you thought was in college? You thought he was on vacation? He in jail. How many of us have had a drug addict in our family? Got a drug addict in your family? Yeah. That uncle that's twitching, you thought he just had a twitch? Yeah, he's on drugs. Yeah.
I never had a drug.
You on alcohol? Yeah, alcohol, addiction.
Drugs.
Right?
I really
addiction.
can't because I'm from Liberia originally, and I don't think I had a drug family. I've had like worse, you know what I'm saying? Worse situation, leaders and messed up leaders, but
Let's talk about that for 1
never
second.
had any.
Let's talk about that for 1 second. The difference between our brothers and sisters from African countries and African Americans. Why do you think that your family may have not had those type of issues as drugs and alcohol or whatever? What's the difference between the African American experience and
Well, I think when it comes, I can't speak for everyone, but as far as my family, I say we was unable to use drugs and like any misuse of drugs because first of all, it's low money coming out of the situation I came out of, and drugs really is not in Africa or like that. If you see people doing drugs, it's like real abnormal. It's like you have starvation to worry about. You have rebels intruding in your homes and you losing everything. And then you don't have time for that drug. You know what I'm saying? It's like you got to worry about getting yourself out of this place, because if you don't move out of this place in the next 24 to 48 hours, you might have a rebel kick down your door and rape your mom, or or do other things that's worse. So we don't have time for that. And by the time drugs do get down there, they're kind of old, and even not even bad drugs. Let's talk about prescription drugs. Drugs like Tylenol, all those things. People don't even take those because those things are expired. You know what I'm saying? So it's like
that's a whole different experience.
It's a whole nother thing.
That's deep, man.
Where you can't get you're gonna access to something.
That's deep. I mean, let me ask another question. How many of you all know your grandmothers? You know your grandmothers? Do you know her history? Where's your grandmother from?
Alabama.
Alabama. You don't know?
Various places.
Okay, where was she born?
She was born in Alabama, but I think she was raised in Akron.
Alabama.
But Arizona too.
Right. But the South.
Yeah.
What about your family? Grandmother. Missouri. Right. What's your grandmother? Alabama. D'Angelo, you know you?
No.
You don't know? You gotta find out, okay? Gotta find out. My grandmother was from Georgia. Now, when you think about the black experience, the reason why all of our grandmothers and grandparents are from the South, and your grandmother, though she's probably from Missouri, her mother was from the South, is because 90% of black people were from the South prior to something called the Great Black Migration. There was something called the Great Black Migration. Now, when we came from Africa, particularly West Africa, we all came to the South. Why did they bring us to the South, you think?
It's a lot of land.
It's a lot of land. That's one reason.
Easier to adapt.
Easier to adapt. That's another reason. The weather. This is the big thing. The weather. Why? Because you can harvest all year round. So you got cotton, you got tobacco, you got indigo, you got sugar cane, right? Now I'm telling you about this history part of it because it'll lead us to where we are today. So we always in the South. 90% black people was in the South. We wasn't up north. We was in the South. Right? But many of us left the South because the racism, man, because the lynchings that was taking place. My great-great-grandmother had 7 sons. You know what I'm saying? So they had to leave up out of Georgia, or if not, what's going to happen? They was getting lynched. You know what I'm saying?
What does that mean?
Lynched mean, you ever seen them like hanging from trees? Like you ever seen like Billie Holiday got a song called Strange Fruit? I want you to look that up. Billie Holiday got a song called Strange Fruit.
That's deep.
Right? So you know fruits that hang on trees, right? But instead in the South, instead of a fruit or an apple hanging from the tree with black men hanging from trees or white men hanging from trees, the lynching. They used to put a rope around their neck and then put it on a tree and they'll be hung to death, right?
I think that's how the term picnic came about as well.
Nigga, that's what people say.
Yeah.
My old foster mom taught me that.
You foster mom taught you
She
that?
don't like me saying picnic no
Like
more.
saying picnic, right? Yeah. So we left the South and we came up north. So that's why Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Chicago, Detroit. This is why everybody there from Mississippi. They're from Mississippi, Alabama. Yeah, I never met each other before, but both your grandmothers from Alabama. You may be surprised that during that time, if you retrace it, y'all families probably knew each other, depending on what part of Alabama they was from, right? Because there wasn't a lot of black people that were free, or they were enslaved, or whatever the case may be. So they came to Cleveland because there was a lot of factories. They came to Detroit. Detroit, the nickname of Detroit is what? The Motor City, right? Right. That's why they call it Motown, Motor City, right? Yeah, man. So black people move up north. They moved to Chicago. They moved to Cleveland. They moved to New York. They moved to these different places. So then you had this area called, or this time period that was all about civil rights, the civil rights movement, right? 50s and the 60s with Dr. King and Malcolm, man. They fighting for our rights, fighting for us to have the ability to vote and so forth and so on. The Jim Crow era, I'm just giving you all the historical perspective of what our people went through until once we touched on these shores, what our people was going through to the point where we are today, right? So then you had the Jim Crow time, then you had the civil rights. We passed this bill, right, for us to have the opportunity to vote, right? 1965, we could vote now. That was only how many years ago that we could start voting without no issues? We still had issues, but 46 years, only 46 years ago, that means that your grandmother can remember not being able to vote. I mean, your grandmother can remember white only and colored. Your grandmother can remember that. She can remember going into places and saying white only. She can't go in there. She can remember that. That wasn't a long time ago, man. That was a little while ago. So why is it that our grandparents care so much about reading? Because they can remember a time when reading, man, was illegal. They can remember a time when the libraries said white only. They can remember a time when they were being kicked out of schools. They can remember that. That wasn't a long time ago. Your grandparents can. That was a couple generations ago, right? Yeah, man. Libraries. So for them, Barack Obama means a lot more to them than it means to you, because they could never believe seeing a black president. I just wouldn't. What do they always say? I never thought I would see it in my lifetime. Like all of our grandmothers probably said that. I never thought I'd see it in my lifetime, right? But we were able to see it, so it wasn't a big deal to us. So a movement is not really a big deal to us, because we ain't go through no struggle, man. We ain't go through not having it. See, you can relate to that. You can relate to that because the African American experience is a lot different from the African experience of those who came over, who didn't go through necessarily. You went through your own struggle. Don't get it twisted. But it's kind of different because drugs were dropped off into the African American community. Dr. King was pop, Malcolm pop, there was a group called the Black Panthers that came afterwards. So they said, hey man, how do we defeat these people? Man, they were dropping drugs off in the hood, man. Dropping bags of cocaine off in the hood. Boom. How you think Frank Lucas became the American gangster? He became the American gangster, man, with the help of our American government. I met the real Rick Ross, man. Sat down with him. He said, man, the reason why I was able to move like that because they was bringing drugs into our community and using the money to fund the war somewhere else. So imagine that you are so powerful. You are so powerful. They dropping bags of drugs off, bro. Chopping it off in the hood. They just dropping it off. You get what I mean? So this is why you look, Detroit had riots. Cleveland had riots. DC had riots. Los Angeles had riots. Cities all across this country is rioting. So now if you look at like, I just want you to just think, if you look at like your grandmother, or maybe like your great grandmother, or any family member in your family is like 60, they're a lot different from your family member that's maybe like 50 years old. Because see, when they're like 60 years old, they can remember Dr. King. They can remember a time of movement. They can remember there was a movement going on. But like 50, that's when crack hit real hard. So if you look at any family member that's like 50 years old, something like that, they probably did some drugs or something like that. Because crack and stuff didn't hit real hard when Dr. King was out. The crack thing didn't hit hard, but it really hit hard like in the 80s, man. So between 40 and like 50, you'll see family members that are like was on drugs. Right?
Which is funny you said that because I was talking to my mother about it. She's talking about why New Jack City was such a controversial movie. It's because they feel like the white people put cocaine in the black neighborhoods. We couldn't afford that. There's no way we could afford that. So they had to put it into their society and their neighborhoods, which started the whole New Jack City.
No doubt. I just want you to look at history. I just want you to pay attention to history. Slavery, we got out of slavery. There was a time called the Reconstruction period. All right? This is when, you know what I'm saying, they said 40 acres and a mule. You all heard of that before, 40 acres and a mule. Then, well, after slavery, they said, what we'll do is we'll give each slave 40 acres of land, and we'll give him a mule so that he can plow the land, so he can raise his own fruits and vegetables, and he could plow the land, and he could sell the fruits, so that he could become economically stable. You with me? But then they took away the 40 acres and a mule. And then this is when people by the name of sharecroppers, right? So now you was a slave before, but now you a sharecropper, so now you work for me. You're not a slave no more, but you work for me. Now listen, you got to give me 10 bags of potatoes every season. Every season, you got to give me that. I don't care if you only get 5 bags. You got to give me 10 bags to work on my land. Now, if you only give me 5 bags, what does that mean? You owe me what? You owe me 5. So now, the new form of slavery may not necessarily be shackles, but the new form of slavery is what? Debt. The new form of slavery is debt. So before I came to college, I was poor, and when I left college, I was even worse. Because I'm in debt. Because I owe $60,000. So now, yeah, I got the education. They call it good debt, but I'm still can't get a credit card, can't get a car, can't get this, can't get that, can't get this, can't get that, because I'm in debt, right? So imagine Dr. King said that if you are born behind in the race, you have to run faster, or you will always remain behind in the race. So we was behind. So now you Reconstruction area. Now you got the civil rights, the Jim Crow period, white only, color only. We like, nah, man, sprayed with hoses, bit by dogs, people getting lynched, so forth and so on. And after that, this is when, as I said, the civil rights movement took place. Dr. King, and he got. But see, once Dr. King came, I have a dream, nonviolence, nonviolence. It was like, and he still got popped. Why is that? Because, man, the true power, and you are dangerous, not if you fight or got a gun, that don't make you dangerous. If you can empower people to change their mindset, then you dangerous, bro. Then you dangerous. You ain't dangerous because you got a bunch of people from the party. That don't make you dangerous. Get those same people to go out and vote. Okay, I gotta watch that. You have people come to you like, what you need, what you want to do, what can I give you? Right?
See, I probably do the same thing. Like, I definitely like the other day I was on Twitter, and I just put on my Twitter like, hey, remember, you know what I mean, voting's coming up. And then one of my buddy retweeted me. I was like, no, I said, I wish Obama gets reelected. And then one of my buddies who go to school down south, he retweeted it, and he said, don't wish, make it happen, vote. You know what I'm saying? Wish I kind of held on to that. And I was like, me being African and me not being a citizen, you know what I'm saying? I can't personally vote, but I will definitely be the reason why a lot of people vote. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not a citizen by choice. I've been here since I was young. You know what I'm saying? I could be a citizen if I pay the money, but you know what I'm saying? It's a whole bunch of, you know what I mean? It's a whole bunch of stuff behind that. But I'm definitely gonna be because like when he approached me with this, he told me like, you know, people come to you guys' events, and I really would like it if you come here. And I was like, all right, for sure, because I'm not only in it for the party. You know, it's about how I was raised. It's about family, you know, and I think our black community within Akron, we don't have, many of us wasn't raised like that. I see people watching their back. I see some roommates I live with, they, for example, they can't just leave something out there and me moving it to another location where I think it'll be safe. They walk in the door, they're like, oh, somebody stole my stuff. Like, you know what I'm saying?
That's the first thing you think about.
It's like, that's not true. Like, your stuff is right here. Here you go, your stuff. I just took it out of plain eyesight so that wouldn't happen. But, you know, we don't have that family. We wasn't raised like that, have different backgrounds. And I think that's what's affecting us. Another thing.
That's real. So that was our situation, man. The 80s, man, was tough. Think about the music and the groups that came out during the 80s. NWA in the 80s, right? Boys in the Hood. This is the 80s. It's the 80s time. You know, the music was really, if you want to know what time period you're in, check out the music that's being played. It can kind of tell you what movement is going on. It can kind of tell you what's the environment like through the music. So when Marvin Gaye was saying what's going on, he was talking about what's going on. He's talking about the war. He's talking about this, so forth and so on. From the music, I asked him, just recently, so Plies got a song. You know Plies. We're gonna bring it to the 2000s. Plies got a song called Just the Tip. I know you don't know what that means. Good. All right? You don't need to know what that means. All right? You don't need to know a thing. All right? So I said, man, let me go to the lyrics of what this dude. When you get a chance, I just want you to read the lyrics. Don't listen to the song, because the song is like voodoo. All right? You'll be like, oh, that's how music is. You're like, oh my goodness. You should be into it like that. I want you to read the lyrics. And I promise you, like, if a dude was talking to your sister like this, you would be like, this dude is a rapist, man. For somebody, I want somebody to pull up the lyrics for me if you get a chance. Just pull up the lyrics for me. And I want you to, the lyrics is bananas.